Cool. Yeah, it's the same as you were talking before. No, it's different.
Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on the show. Yeah. Do you want to introduce yourself in 60 seconds?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Hamza Chaudhry. Marco and I used to go to university together. He studied physics whilst I studied engineering when I was younger, and we sort of collaborated and saw each other when we were at uni, and I think we're pretty good friends now. And so I grew up in the south of London. I currently work at Amazon as a technical program manager. Previous to that, I had been, as you know, just previously spoke, I did an engineer. Let's start again. It's not slick. Let me start again.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, you can start again.
Yeah, you can edit it and we can start again, right?
Yeah, of course. No worries.
Cool. Let's go for it.
Cool. Yeah. Welcome to the show. This is Hamza. We met each other at uni, and Hamza did lots of cool stuff like setting up the consulting society at uni. He now works at Amazon. And yeah, do you want to introduce yourself?
Thanks, Marco. Thanks for the kind introduction. Thanks for inviting me on your shows. Really appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to the discussion. I grew up in the south of London. I studied an engineering master's at the University of Surrey. I conducted a placement year whilst I was at university, and thereafter, currently, I'm working as a technical program manager at Amazon. Really exciting stuff, working in the robotics division.
I think it clocked out, but it's okay. Yeah, we got to the robotics division, and
yeah, feel free to ask follow-up questions, Marco, as well.
Yeah. So compared to what you're doing now at Amazon, how do you think it relates to what you were doing as a kid? And your hobbies as a kid?
I think as a child, I was always interested in robotics, in science, engineering. Lego was something that I dabbled with a lot, and Meccano, so building constructions and robots. And I mean, I'm looking up onto my shelves, and I can see some of my old robots that I used to make as a child, and I think that had been very much apparent as a child. And decided to go into engineering. I think engineering provides you a really good foundation of science and maths and the practical applications of physics, and enables you to get a wider appreciation for the world. And also is one of those professions which is flexible. So it provides a lot of opportunities downstream from an exit opportunity perspective, and was one of the things that, when you're a child, you don't really know what you want to do. And I was thinking to myself, I want to keep my opportunities as open as possible. And I had prior interest in engineering, and so therefore chose to go into that sector.
That's cool. And then you studied engineering, and you did a placement at Rolls-Royce, and then you started changing to more business focus. How did that happen?
Yeah, absolutely. So after my second year, I decided to do a placement year at Rolls-Royce. Surrey is quite a great university in the sense that they offer great placement for students, and now granted that's on your ownership to kind of decide what placement you're going to do. I applied to several and got an opportunity at Rolls-Royce in performance engineering. It was quite technical, not going to lie. I was in performance engineering, and performance is this symbiosis between thermodynamics, physics, and really the business element of Rolls-Royce also. So it couples business and also the science, the engineering side of things. And I think I've got a really wide appreciation for the engineering business. I was looking after aircraft certification, engine certification requirements, and then also doing process improvements at the same time. I think some really pivotal experiences early on in my career, which in Rolls-Royce, I'm happy to kind of discuss those if you want. And that sort of enabled me to get to where I am today, I'd say. I'd say if I hadn't had those interactions, I hadn't had that mentorship from the people within the company, I perhaps wouldn't be where I am currently.
Mm-hmm. And are those like growth and you made mistakes, or do you want to talk more about them?
Yeah, absolutely, Marco. So I'd worked on several projects. One of them was in relation to aircraft certification, and that was somewhat of a journey. Throughout that experience, I got a really wide appreciation for how do we develop engine control system solutions, so advanced technology solutions to meet business requirements, and you get really great appreciation from that perspective. But I say the opportunity which enabled me to have the greatest learning was a process improvement. And as a process improvement in which we had a data transfer process, and the data transfer processes between Rolls-Royce and control systems. So the data is the impact of that data being wrong can be quite catastrophic, right? That's entering into the engine software of an airplane engine. And so there's a lot of robustness that needs to be there. And we'd identified errors within that process, let's say. Those errors were acknowledged by our customers. And so there'd been a bit of a push and pressure to improve the existing process and ensure and mechanisms in place to prevent defects. A little bit of a long-winded explanation, but that's sort of the context. And long story short, if an airplane comes down, we really don't want that, right? Coupled with an aggressive deadline of aircraft certification in the succeeding months. So we had a push to certify the engine, and then we had concerns from the customer on the robustness of the process in which we are going to be transferring data from ourselves to the actual engine itself. I looked at the process, looked at some of the improvements, and come up with a proposal. Very young in my career, right? Like, this is my first job, like not even after university, during university, you could say. And I decided to set up a Kaizen event. A Kaizen event is when you host multiple cross-functional stakeholders into a room to brainstorm and come up with a solution. Suffice to say, that meeting didn't go too well, right? Lack of structure, lack of technical credit. When it's your first job, you can be naive, right? You could come up with a proposal and a solution, and whilst it may be a good proposal, you need to communicate and articulate that to the end customer or to the stakeholders in a way in which they're going to understand and take them on board on the journey, right? What's the problem statement? What's the proposal? What's the benefits? What's the cons? What's the trade-offs? The risks. You've got to really structure your communication in a way in which they're going to understand, and they're not going to think that you don't know what you're talking about. And that can be a common error, I think, for young people entering into the industry is they don't prepare, or at least I didn't prepare thoroughly enough for that meeting. And I think failure is one of those things where you learn the most. You don't learn through doing things great. I mean, you might brush off, you might polish some of your skill sets, but it's really through failure that you can take a step back. What went well? What went poor? How can I improve? And then you seek advice from others, right? You get wider perspectives from the group. There's so many senior stakeholders at Rolls-Royce, and they've had a wealth of experience. One of the great things there is it's a family environment. They're not going to penalize you for making a mistake. I mean, we're all human at the end of the day. And I say that for many companies, right? Not just Rolls-Royce, even where I'm currently in Amazon. Yes, it's fast-paced. Yes, it's, we've got to deliver. But if we don't fail fast, fail forward, we're not going to get to the optimum solution in the end. And so this improvement project, it was a failure at the first instance. And then I sort of took a step back and decided to put a proposal together in the structure that I'd sort of mentioned to you. Yeah. Background, problem statement, proposal, risks, trade-offs, timeline. And I translated it to the top level business requirements, right? Like, coincidentally, I'd been reading the strategy of Rolls-Royce. I think that their financial report had been released the day prior to my presentation, and in my presentation I was given, I'd quoted a little extracts and translated my particular proposal to those requirements, and it went really well. I have to say, it went really well.
Okay.
And I got stakeholders involved in the end.
So you turned around and really took the first presentation and made it. That's really good. And how did you take these lessons or this kind of approach when you started the consulting society? How did you turn that into what it's become?
Yeah, so absolutely. So I'd say I sort of went back to university, and because obviously I didn't directly come from Rolls-Royce, right? It wasn't a direct output. Between university and consulting society, I'd also conducted an M&A internship in London. So slowly, I'd been getting a greater exposure to business and finance, for that matter, and trying to better understand how engineering can relate to business. So the reason I started consulting society is, well, there's a multitude of reasons, but one of the things is I wanted to provide something which could stimulate their career and provide them with skills that perhaps they didn't have the opportunity to acquire. I'd seen multiple different universities maybe have a consulting society, and I'd seen a gap within Surrey, and said, okay, let's create one. I'd also had an interest, right? Consulting is one of those fascinating careers where you can get huge diversity of knowledge of different sectors, and it's strategic whilst also operational. And if you don't know what you want to do in life and you don't know what you want to do in your career, it's one of the greatest things that you can maybe start in, because you get that broad peanut butter spread of the industry and business, that is.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel that now that you helped other students I remember you would organize like a few days of worth of workshops and invited big companies over.
Yeah.
If you'd gone back, like if you're back running the society, is there anything you would do differently or a different skill or new ideas you would add?
I would have maybe done it earlier, but hindsight is. I would have liked to have done it earlier, maybe, so that I'd started consulting society. We grew the society to over 300 members in the first year. We set up mechanisms and structures in place in which we had multiple different teams running together simultaneously. It wasn't just me who did consulting stock, right? The success isn't just. You need to have a strong team behind you such that you can delegate effectively. I think having that understanding early would have been useful, right? Because too often you can maybe take on too much yourself, and that's not efficient. It's great getting perspectives from others, and everyone has their skills and everyone has their things that they're good at. Leverage the people who are good at certain things to do what you need to do. And what I mean by that is, one of my other society, the vice president, Yu Chen, was great when it came to marketing and putting digital advertisement together, right? If I was going to do the same thing, it'd probably take me a lot longer and I wouldn't do it as great. That's just a single example, but be cognizant of the strengths of the people within your team and leverage them to get the end output, which is optimal.
Yeah. I found that as well when I started running societies, is that there's people who can do it so much better, and it's it's so great to have them because you can do so much more stuff and they can actually save you time, and so you don't have to do stuff you don't like. And how, now that we talked a bit about like different skills and being a leader within a society, how do you think business leaders are going to change in the future? I mean, are they going to be more STEM? Are they going to be more soft skills? What?
I guess sort of to take a step back, right? How do you become a business leader these days? And I mean, I'm far from it at the moment, right? I'm very early in my career, and I'm sort of at the start of it. And so, in my opinion, to be a great business leader, you need to have a good understanding of the business from an operational perspective. One of the beauties of where I'm currently working versus, say, consulting or say investment banking, for example, is you get a it's great getting that peanut butter spread understanding or that paintbrush stroke of the industry, or and acquire great communication skills and presentation skills. And those are fundamental. But to be a great leader, to have that technical credibility, you need to go deep. In my current role, and I started Amazon, I don't think I touched on this in our call today. I started Amazon in operations. So I've been working in a robotics fulfillment center. I started as a quality manager, and I was managing well over 100 people and had exposure to the operations firsthand experience of it. I think when you're there face to face and you get a really deep understanding of what's going on, your learning and growth experience, your learning and growth is tenfold versus reading about it. So I think really experience in the sector and maybe spending 2-3 years in a given industry and then deciding to be a leader, I think that's the best approach. And personally for myself, I pivoted. So I'd worked in operations for around a year and a bit. I'd worked in a tenured site and then decided to launch a brand new site altogether. Launching a site, I have to say, when you launch a site, you get a real appreciation for strategy and execution. It's very easy writing a paper. It's very easy saying this is the strategy, but to actually execute it, it's a whole new challenge. And it comes back to my main point in the sense that you need to have an in-depth understanding of your operations. You need to have an in-depth understanding of your business such that you can forecast the pitfalls preemptively rather than being reactive. Currently, I am working as a technical program manager. My current role is a conduit between robotics and operations and moving more towards strategy. But I think it's about, you need to go slow to go fast. Don't progress too quickly. And we all want to progress quickly. We all want to get promoted as fast as possible, but you need to develop a really, really strong foundation. If your foundation is weak, there's going to come a point where you topple, you collapse, you can't progress any further. You ultimately are stuck at that position, or you perhaps aren't as great for your role as you could be. And so you may not get the result instantaneously. You may not be delivering instantaneously, but really go slow to go fast. And I think that's one of the greatest advices for any business or engineering leader is don't be too work and invest in developing a foundation before you kind of branch out and build.
How did you come to acknowledge this? Because it's very easy advice to give, but when did you really feel it and learn it?
In my current role, and I'd say like through my experiences to date, right? But I'd say very much in my current role. Around a year ago, I had a really great manager who he'd been in my shoes already for a year and had vocalized it to me, right? When someone tells you something, it's very easy, right? Like someone can tell you something, but you don't really acknowledge it. You don't, or at least it doesn't go in as easily. I think that's your question, right? Like, how did you come to that realization? My role is 50% network performance, like looking after network performance, around 30% continuous improvement, and 20% sort of personal development and growth and development, etc. When you need to business, you can come up with ideas, but those ideas aren't going to add value in the same way as if you had a holistic understanding of the business, right? I don't know, like, if this makes sense, but through your experiences to date, you can come up with proposals. But when you have a better understanding of the systems, the services, the interrelationships between them, your proposals are much more robust and much more advanced, and you may initially come up with a proposal which may save $1-2 million, but say if you have a more in-depth understanding of the business and you can better identify opportunities which will add increased value to the organization. And I think that's the point I'm trying to make, right? I think we kind of went around a way of getting to that point is the value that you can add to an organization and the business through having a better in-depth understanding. You can go fast and develop a proposal, but that proposal, one, like, may not actually target the root cause or be the most optimum thing which is going to add value. And be selective with what you say yes to, and then ultimately deliver something which is of increased value.
Yeah, I see. So trying to go too fast might mean you're not able to find the really high value things that allow you to succeed.
Yeah, I'd say so. And at the same time, you don't have that credibility as well. I'd say when you interact with people, if you really know something, you come up a lot better and a lot more confident, and you can thereafter add greater value to them as well. Right?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I've seen it in my own projects as well.
Right? Like it's great, right? Like we all wanna go quickly. We all look at social media. We've all seen like how quickly people are progressing. You know, what accomplishments and accolades and milestones other people are doing. So we think to ourselves, let's go quickly. Let's progress as fast as possible. But there comes a point where, because you haven't got that foundation, you're just going to crumble. And I'd observed certain situations in which that's happened and interacted with people who perhaps had progressed too quickly. And in my opinion, whilst they are very, very smart people, they may just stay where they are for a very long time and not be able to progress any further beyond that point.
Because the further up you go, maybe it's so much harder to make the mistakes and learn than if you
Yeah, absolutely, Marco, right? The
even
tolerance is less as well.
Yeah. And what about finding, really meaningful work? Big corporations, you do certain things, you do certain projects. You might have a small to medium scale, especially in a junior job, or even save $1 million, and that's quite a cool thing. But how do you find purpose that you work and then you're like, okay, this is really cool and I'm happy to be doing it?
I think it's ensuring that your values align with your company values. That's one thing, right? You join a company which is willing to support and develop you and grow you and willing to listen to you.
Sure.
Two, it's about having that communication with your manager and your leaders within the organization. Vocalizing those interests and saying, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm interested in. If opportunities come, can you please put me in those spaces? Three, it's being tactical in what you say yes to, right? It's very easy to say yes to everything. When you start in an organization, you're eager, you're keen, you want to make an impact, and you can say yes to everything, and then ultimately you don't have time. Important resources there is. There's only 24 hours in a day, and you sleep for, say, 8 hours. You work for, 8 hours a day, maybe more, depending on the industry, but it's finite. That time's not going to come back. And in a year, you've got a finite amount of time time block and be intentful with how you spend your time. Right?
Yeah.
If you want to do meaningful work, ensure that you've had that communication with your manager and you can block that time in your diary. Don't attend meetings if you don't need to attend meetings. It's very easy to sign up to as many meetings as possible, and your whole entire week is just spent talking to people or sitting in meetings where you add zero value.
And you get zero value because you could be doing so much more.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Some of these learnings, I have to say, like in the past couple of years, really honed them and learned them, and part through mistakes as well. I mean, you join meetings and you're just sitting there and I'm like, why am I here? I mean, I'm at zero value to this call. I'm on mute. Okay, fine. Some of the content is interesting, but can I not learn the same through the minutes of the meeting afterwards? Maybe speak to, if a team member is present on the call who's speaking, maybe speak to them after and say, oh, what were the key highlights? Mm-hmm. If you're not actively a part of that project, probably no point you being there.
Yeah, I think this speaks to not being impatient, because when you first join a company, you think that the more meetings you're involved in, the more you get to learn, the more you see. But it's a bit of a balance, because then you just join everything and you remember nothing and you get really tired and you don't do anything.
Absolutely.
Long term.
You could spend that time, to the point, doing meaningful work. The time you're not in meetings, you could be doing work which is important. You could be learning. And okay, fine, I add value and I deliver CI initiatives which add several £1 million savings for the company, etc. But I'm very intentful in learning more about the business. And so I block out a certain number of my hours to get a better understanding of the systems, the services that we provide, the process paths. Mm-hmm. And it comes to back to the previous point of go slow to go fast. I'm also learning Python, SQL, Minitab, because I feel it's really important having a good appreciation for statistical analysis in this day and age.
Yep.
Each to their own on that, and depending on what your interests are, but I find it's really important to develop your skills and improve upon your skills year on year. Right? If your skills are not improving, then you're not developing, you're not growing, and you're staying where you are.
Yeah, at Uber it's the same. There's a lot of data available, and it's very hard to make projects if you can't make like good business cases for them. And the best way is to dive into data, talk to people, and then you're able to find some data quickly or help somebody with a project, and that's a good way to learn as well.
It's totally, Marco. It's like you need to be able to present yourself with data effectively and robustly, and that data needs to be validated, and the only way to do that is through statistical analysis.
Do a query. I like a query that's 5 minutes that ends up taking 4 hours, but it's okay.
Sure. And you can, of course, get other teams to support you with that, but they themselves have their own priorities and they have their own work, and then it takes time. If you can learn to do it yourself, you cut that time. Maybe it'll take 2 weeks to get the output. You could do that, maybe spend a day and get that output yourself.
It allows you to, like you said, focus. Okay, let's talk about the future a bit, and then just to finish off, how, if you could pick any job that you'd like to do in 20 years' time, any job or role or industry, what in 20 years' time, what would it be, and why is it interesting?
20 years is a very long time horizon, hey?
This is like a cool goal that you might give yourself.
I think let's talk about the next 3 years. Initially, I'm currently at Amazon as a technical program manager. I'd like to progress to the next level, maybe get some international experience. Thereafter, maybe transition to more of a product-orientated role. I think that'd be very interesting. And then we'll see where life takes me. Maybe I stay with Amazon for a little while, or maybe I go a bit more left field. I do have a few ideas, but still working on them.
Yeah. Do you want to share one of them? Just to...
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested in the startup space, definitely, and venture capital, and Amazon also like provide those opportunities themselves. But I say long term, that's maybe a space that I'd be very interested in working in.
Okay, very cool. All right, let's do this again in a year or so and then see.
Yeah, sure.
I'm really curious about your startup things. But yeah, cool. Thanks for coming on the show. This is really great, and yeah.